Hashtag Biya must go is trending on X. Across Cameroon, the streets are boiling. The air feels heavier, the tension almost electric. In Douala, young men chant beneath clouds of tear gas. In Yaoundé, crowds defy curfews, waving flags and cardboard signs that read only one word: enough. The people are tired. 40+ years under one man's rule has stretched patience to its breaking point. And now, whispers grow louder that even members of the police and gendarmerie are on the verge of joining the protests. The line between state and citizen is starting to blur. Then came the announcement, one that turned anger into open revolt. The Constitutional Council declared that 92-year-old Paul Biya had once again secured victory, claiming an 8th presidential term. For many, it wasn't an election result. It was déjà vu. The same speech, the same faces, the same promises from a leader who's been in power since 1982. In a nation of nearly 28 million people, where nearly 65% are under the age of 35, this news didn't feel like democracy. It felt like betrayal. To Cameroon's youth, a generation that has only known one president their entire lives, this wasn't just politics. It was a declaration that their voices, their dreams, and their future still don't matter. Now, a wave of anger ripples across the nation, both in the streets and online. Videos of students confronting security forces go viral. Influencers, artists, and even former soldiers are speaking out, risking arrest. For the first time in decades, the Biya regime faces something it has long feared: a generation with nothing left to lose. The protests are no longer just about politics. They're about dignity, about identity, about reclaiming a country that has been held hostage for too long. This is the story of Cameroon, a nation standing at the edge of change. And as hashtag Biya must go echoes across every city and screen, the question isn't if the tide will turn, it's when. Across the country, the streets are telling a story the official results don't. In the economic heartland of Douala and the politically charged northern city of Garoua, furious citizens are clashing with security forces. They're rejecting what they call a stolen election, a political performance designed to keep one of the world's oldest leaders in power until he's nearly 100. We take you to the front lines of a nation at its boiling point, where the demand for change is meeting the iron will of a regime that refuses to let go. It all started with a televised proclamation that felt more like a formality than a democratic result. The Constitutional Council, Cameroon's highest electoral body, read out the results of the October 2025 presidential election. The incumbent, Paul Biya, was declared the winner with about 53.7% of the vote. His main challenger, Issa Chiroma Bakari, a former government minister who broke ranks to run against his old boss, was officially given around 35.2%. To understand the weight of this, you have to understand the man at the center of it all, Paul Biya. Born in 1933, he's been president since November 6, 1982. He came to power when Ronald Reagan was in the White House and the Soviet Union still existed. For most Cameroonians, he is the only leader they have ever known. His rule, now stretching into its fifth decade, has been defined by a quiet, almost reclusive style, earning him nicknames like the Sphinx for his long and frequent stays in a luxury hotel in Geneva. This election wasn't just another vote. It was a referendum on that legacy, but the opposition says it was a sham from the start. Immediately after the council's announcement, Issa Chiroma Bakari held a press conference that was less a concession and more a call to defiance. He flatly rejected the results, calling the whole thing a masquerade and a stolen election. Bakari, who is 76, claimed his team had compiled results from individual polling stations that showed a clear victory for his campaign. In a fiery statement, he told his supporters to defend their votes, declaring, "We will never accept their votes being stolen by anyone." This wasn't just political talk. It was the spark that lit the fuse.
C'est le bureau approprié pour le peuple et nous sommes le peuple.
Quand les choses s'est passées, moi j'ai passé, j'ai vu comment les gens couraient et ils montaient, ils descendaient.
Bakari, a veteran politician who once served as Biya's own Minister of Communication, accused the ruling party of having its back against the wall. He challenged them to prove his numbers wrong and made it clear he wouldn't back down. That declaration of a stolen vote spread like wildfire across the country, reaching a young, frustrated, and digitally connected population already simmering with discontent. The stage was set for a major confrontation. The response to Bakari's call was immediate. Protests didn't just bubble up, they erupted. The epicenters were Douala, the nation's sprawling economic capital, and Garoua, the northern city that serves as Bakari's hometown. In Douala, a city of over 3 million, life ground to a halt as demonstrators poured into the streets. They were overwhelmingly young, a generation that has known only Biya's rule and faces a grim future of high unemployment. The scenes were chaotic.
Laisse le pouvoir à une autre personne et la personne doit essayer.
Protesters threw up makeshift barricades, setting tires on fire and sending black smoke into the sky. Major roads were blocked, severing the arteries of the country's most important commercial hub. The chants weren't just about a stolen election. They were about decades of frustration, cries for jobs, for opportunity, for a future. For many, this was less a political protest and more an existential rebellion. The government's response was swift and harsh. Security forces, including riot police and the gendarmerie, were deployed in huge numbers. They used tear gas to break up the crowds, and in many places, things quickly turned violent. Eyewitness accounts and videos showed violent clashes, with protesters throwing rocks and security forces responding with force. Even before the final results were announced, pre-election tensions had reportedly led to some deaths. After the announcement, the situation only got worse, with opposition leader Issa Chiroma Bakari posting on social media that security forces had shot at civilians in his hometown of Garoua, killing 2. The governor of the littoral region, which includes Douala, confirmed that security forces had been injured and announced that arrests were being made. The crackdown, however, did little to stop the anger. In Garoua, when security units reportedly tried to arrest Bakari on polling day, thousands of his supporters fought back. The protest became a symbol of a deep and dangerous divide. a regime clinging to power by force, and a people willing to risk it all for a chance at something new. To really get why people are so furious, you have to look back over 40 years to when Paul Biya first took office. He didn't seize power in a revolution, he inherited it. In November 1982, Cameroon's first president, Amadou Ahidjo, suddenly resigned, and Biya, his prime minister, became the constitutional successor. The transition was smooth at first, but within a year, Biya consolidated his power. A failed coup attempt in 1984, which Biya blamed on Ahidjo, gave him the justification he needed to purge all his rivals and centralize control. At first, Biya hinted at reforms with a New Deal policy, but after the coup attempt, the regime hardened. In 1985, he created his own party, the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, or CPDM, which still rules today. For the rest of the 80s, he ran unopposed in single-party elections. The winds of change that swept across Africa in the early 1990s forced Biya to legalize opposition parties. The country's first multi-party election in 1992 was a close call. Biya won, but with only about 40% of the vote and amid widespread claims of fraud. It was a pattern that would repeat itself in one election after another. Each victory was met with opposition claims of rigging, but each time the results stood. A key moment came in 2008 when the parliament, dominated by his party, amended the constitution to remove presidential term limits. That single act opened the door for Biya to rule for life. Critics argue the whole political system is built to ensure he wins. The president holds immense power, appointing everyone from the prime minister to local officials. All of this is happening against the backdrop of a major national crisis, the Anglophone conflict. What started in 2016 as peaceful protests by lawyers and teachers in the English-speaking regions was met with a violent government crackdown. That heavy-handed response fueled a full-blown armed separatist insurgency. The conflict has been devastating, with thousands killed and over 1 million people displaced. The regime's handling of the crisis, choosing military force over dialogue, is seen by many as its playbook for dealing with any kind of dissent. It's a 43-year history of monopolizing power that has pushed the nation to its breaking point. The cry of a stolen election feels different this time, mainly because it's being led by a man who knows the regime from the inside out. Issa Chiroma Bakari is a political chameleon. He was once a political prisoner, jailed for 6 years without a conviction after the 1984 coup attempt. After his release, he eventually became a minister in Biya's own government, serving for years as the official government spokesman. Yes, he used to defend the very system he now wants to tear down. His dramatic break came just months before the election when he resigned, accusing President Biya of being out of touch. This history as both an insider and an outsider gives his claims a unique credibility. He drew huge crowds at his rallies, energizing voters who were desperate for change. The opposition's allegations of fraud are specific. They accuse the regime of using the entire state machinery to rig the vote. A key institution at the heart of the fight is the Constitutional Council, the body that proclaims the final results. Its 11 members are all appointed through a process heavily influenced by the president. The opposition has long argued that the council isn't an impartial referee, but an instrument of the ruling party. This distrust was deepened by long-standing complaints against the electoral body, Escalating, which critics have accused of bias in the past. Civil society groups monitoring this election also reported irregularities, like deceased voters on the electoral lists and an unequal distribution of ballot papers that favored the incumbent. While the African Union's observer mission has called for calm and dialogue, The combination of a biased system and on-the-ground issues has created the perfect storm for the opposition's narrative of a stolen election. Bakari's claim is simple. His team's independent count shows he won, and the official results are a lie. The human cost is even more tragic. The exact death toll is still unclear amid the chaos, but reports of fatalities began circulating even before the final results were announced. In the days since, opposition leader Issa Chiroma Bakari has claimed more protesters were killed by security forces. Hundreds of people, mostly young demonstrators, have reportedly been arrested. Beyond the immediate violence, the crisis is deepening the fractures in Cameroonian society. The government's heavy-handed response risks radicalizing protesters and pushing the conflict into even more dangerous territory. For ordinary Cameroonians, this means living in a state of high alert, where just going to work or school is risky, and the future of their country is more uncertain than ever. What do you think? Is this a legitimate victory or a stolen election? Let us know in the comments below. And for more in-depth stories that go beyond the headlines, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. The crisis in Cameroon is drawing more and more international attention. The United Nations and Western governments have criticized the Biya regime in the past for its human rights record, especially its handling of the Anglophone crisis. The current crackdown on protesters will only amplify that criticism. But the international community's leverage is tricky. President Biya has proven skilled at navigating geopolitics, recently building stronger ties with powers like China and Russia, which might shield him from Western pressure. So, what comes next? The opposition isn't showing any signs of backing down. Issa Chiroma Bakari has made it clear he won't concede, framing this as a fight for the country's soul. His strategy seems to be one of sustained popular pressure, hoping to make the country ungovernable until his claims are recognized. The regime, meanwhile, is sticking to its old playbook: repress, deny, and wait for the storm to pass. The government has shown it will use the full force of the state to crush dissent. There's a real risk that the situation could escalate from street protests into a more widespread conflict, especially if the security forces continue to use lethal force. For now, negotiations seem unlikely, as both sides appear locked in a battle for legitimacy. Cameroon is at a crossroads. At the heart of this crisis is a fundamental clash. A 92-year-old president, now with a mandate to rule until he is 99, and a nation of overwhelmingly young people who feel they've been denied a say in their own future. The fire on the streets of Douala and Garoua isn't just about one election. It's the raw expression of a generation's stalled dreams and broken promises. The official results have been declared, but the people have issued their own verdict in the streets. The coming days will decide whether Cameroon descends further into violence or finds a narrow path toward a resolution that doesn't cost the nation its future.